Hello, welcome to today's webinar, Cloud Computing SIG Webcast. We've done Private Oracle Database as a Service, What's Next? With Nitin, Vengurlekar, and Charles Kim. This webinar is brought to you thanks to our Cloud Computing SIG. I encourage you to join the Cloud Computing SIG online today. This is the opportune way to connect with others in the field over this shared interest. In this community, we post relevant blog articles. You may email us to be added to the distribution list or join the community and benefit from our archive section at www.ioug.com/SIGs. Before we begin, I would like to remind the audience to please feel free to submit questions throughout the event via the question chat box on your webinar toolbar. Our speaker will leave some time at the very end of the presentation to address these. I would like to now turn the call over to today's presenter. Please go ahead, Charles and Nitin.
Thanks, everybody. Charles, you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Charles Kim, and I'm the current president of the IOUG Computing SIG. Nitin and I are both fellow ACE directors, and we are published authors in numerous books. And today we want to talk to you guys about provisioning databases and leveraging backups and using the compute capabilities of Oracle Public Cloud. And so what we'll do is, at the beginning of the webinar, Nitin will go over the security aspects of public cloud and hybrid cloud, and I will continue on the second half of the webinar with more of the practical hands-on demonstrations. And so I will forward the next slide to Nitin.
Hello, everybody. My name is Nitin Vengurlekar. Some of you guys may know I was with Oracle for a number of years in the different specialty groups, support, product management, as well as private database cloud evangelism group. I've now moved on to work with Charles, and I'm the CTO of Viscosity. As Charles mentioned, I'm going to cover a couple of things as part of my agenda. My session is going to be a little bit at high level. I'll be looking at enterprise cloud, what cloud models fit best for the enterprise cloud, hybrid cloud, what things Viscosity has done as far as helping customers migrate, develop, and integrate with the hybrid cloud. So my topic is going to be a little bit more platform and technology agnostic, although I will touch on Oracle Public Cloud as far as what we've done, Viscosity has done in that space.
I think your phone cut out a little bit. If you wouldn't mind moving it closer, that way we can hear you a little better. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No
hope
problem.
that's better. Better? Okay.
Yeah, that's better.
All right. So again, I'm going to talk about the journey to the enterprise hybrid cloud, some of the cloud models, the barrier to cloud adoption, the big elephant in the room, and we'll talk about a little bit of security best practices and features, and some of the things that Oracle Public Cloud has to offer to address some of the security issues. Okay? So we'll start by talking about a journey to the enterprise cloud. So in the beginning, back in the way back world, we had applications, we had customers who used configurations that were very siloed. Typically, the business units paid for the hardware, they paid for the software, and it's very siloed configuration. And we still see that to a certain extent in some customer situations. But over the last 10 years or so, we've seen this evolution into a model of where customers simplified, rationalize, and standardize their configuration, resulting in a more efficient consolidation model. And they term this private database or private cloud, private in-house cloud, or shared infrastructure. Right? So that was the model for the last 10 years or so. And it's worked out really well. Things like virtualization, clustering, noisy neighbor containment, all that has played a huge part in the movement and the success of the private on-premise cloud. But over the last couple of years, we're starting to see the adoption of public cloud, and Amazon, Rackspace, Azure all played a big part in that. So with the cloud model, I don't want to talk about the big value of public cloud because everybody already knows it, but if I have to synthesize it down, really, in cloud model, customers purchase no hardware, no permanent support costs, thus reducing overall liabilities. So customers really subscribe to platform services only when needed, and unsubscribe if for a reason like the project gets delayed or whatever it is, right? So the idea here is really quickly and build applications as needed with agility, right? So over the last couple of years, we're starting to see this evolution of hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, right? I use these terms kind of synonymously with the enterprise hybrid cloud. But essentially what that means is that customers are starting to use, Azure for a SQL server, their analytics, Amazon for some IaaS, and then now the customers are starting to use Oracle Public Cloud. So all these different cloud configurations require some level of integration or handling or working together. So that's what we call the enterprise hybrid cloud. So businesses large and small are looking to a blended infrastructure that combines the best of both worlds. So I know you guys have probably already seen the slide before. It's different cloud models, and I don't want to beat this to death since you guys already absorbed this in the past with other IOUG sessions. But I'll just kind of baseline it and talk about where the industry is concentrating its efforts in. In this cloud model, essentially there's three different forms. We have infrastructure as service, software service, and platform as service. And where these three really differ is how much the cloud provider provides as far as resources, and how much time it takes to be productive, right? How much of the onus is on the consumer to build out the system. So on the far left side, we have infrastructure as a service. An example of this would be like Amazon, where they provide you compute, storage, and network, right? But the onus is completely on the consumer to install, bring their licenses, install the software, put the best practices in, configure, and develop the application. So although you have a lot of flexibility in this model, the mean time to deploy the applications can be pretty long, right? On the far right side, we have software as a service, where the solution provider, the cloud provider, if you will, provides end-to-end the hardware, the software, and the application. So there's a little less flexibility as opposed to infrastructure as a service, but the mean time to be productive, the mean time to deploy is extremely fast. So wedged right in between these is this platform as a service, where it's kind of the Goldilocks syndrome, if you will, where the cloud provider gives you enough of the stack and gives you an application, a tool set to quickly develop applications. So you have kind of a little bit of flexibility as far as what applications you can build. And you can quickly build applications using things like Java as a service, Ruby, and Python, right? And where this fits into the security model is that if you're doing infrastructure as a service, the onus is completely on the consumer to build a best practice, putting in encryption, hardening the environment as far as from a security standpoint. Whereas platform and software as a service, a lot of that you're expecting the cloud provider to have that hardened down, right? So the key focus here, the industry key focus is really going to be on platform as a service and software as a service. And I'll use the two terms synonymously for this case, but PaaS and SaaS environment abstracts applications infrastructure platform, right? It reduces the management procurement complexities. Whereas, IaaS is a commodity. Though it saves in CapEx, it doesn't really affect OpEx much. You still have to do a lot of work to get the application up and running. So you still have elongated deployment times. So in my mind, IaaS, it provides very little differentiation in the marketplace. It really comes down to who's cheaper. But if you're going to do software as a service or platform as a service, you have to make sure you employ the right standards and tool sets that you're currently using on-premise. This allows you to extend the functionality and really provides you that rich hybrid feel. Right? And the security plays a key part of this. So are we there yet? We've been talking about hybrid cloud, public cloud for a long time. Based on the RightScale report, a lot of us are already doing it. And we're already, with Viscosity as a company, has already worked with numerous customers to start building a hybrid cloud configuration and start doing that integration, right? So the big value of enterprise cloud is really, the big benefit is the synergistic value from combining the different infrastructures into a single product portfolio for your customers. I know it sounds like a mouthful, but really, if you're an IT provider for your internal customers, having the hybrid cloud solution, different various cloud solutions, it just gives you another gun in your bullet, if you will, another option, right? And this slide kind of resounds that discussion, really. So what is the big interest that's driving enterprise cloud? It's on-demand flexibility, hosting workloads on-premise or in the cloud, or moving them back and forth depending on certain needs, right? So I'll talk about some of the use case examples that Viscosity has been involved with. I won't go through all of them in detail, but kind of give you an idea of where we play a part and where the integration and where enterprise hybrid cloud plays a factor. And the first one is a restaurant business customer. So in this example, after the customer decided they're going to expire some of their old hardware, they made a key decision to migrate their tip allocation business into the cloud. So what Viscosity did is help develop, and it still is developing, a portion of that application in the cloud, as well as tie back their on-premise microsystem, right? And we're also developing an analytics system in the cloud as well. For the hospitality customer service customer, it's the same as the restaurant business. Viscosity is helping develop their new next generation application in the cloud, but they also have purchased an Exadata as well. So once we develop that application in the cloud and we harden it, we've got it well tested, we'll bring it back onto the Exadata platform, as well as keep developing the system in the cloud for future. The mortgage customer is an interesting one, since they're just now getting their feet wet with Oracle Cloud. They're starting to take baby steps and start doing things like backup as a service and data guard as a service. But the interesting customer is the final one, which is the energy customer. Here is a true example of hybrid cloud integration, where this customer is currently using Salesforce, and we're actually building connectors to their Salesforce Apex framework. So essentially tying back their Salesforce to an on-premise SAP Oracle ERP system. So it kind of gives you an idea of where customers are doing in the cloud here. But not all these enterprise cloud deployments are built the same, right? So I kind of bucketized the 3 different scenarios of how hybrid cloud is or isn't being used in these 3 buckets. So the first one is really a disjointed and separate configuration. And in this scenario, customers are building applications on-premise, and they have something new that they're building in the cloud, but there's really no integration or interaction between these on-premise and public. And this is very typical for greenfield new systems that are being built in the public cloud. Right. The second example is where the public cloud is a direct extension of on-premise system configurations, and I think this is where a lot of the work is going to be put in. So in this example, this really implies application and system integration between the cloud platforms. An example of this is what we talked about with the restaurant business, where they're taking a subset of their data and placing that in the cloud. And we're also using things like SaaS and SaaS to on-premise integration between the on-premise and the public cloud. And the final bucket is where the public cloud is essentially used as a use for backups, as kind of an extension, but uses as backups using data guard, or using it as a platform where you're going to burst into the cloud environment, right? For cloud seasonal cloud bursting, if you will. So the big elephant in the room is really, what are the barriers to cloud adoption? That really comes down to security. And the main concern has really been around ensuring security policies that you already have in place on-premise, and ensuring those policies and procedures and technologies available in the cloud, right? So if we talk about journey to the hybrid cloud from a security perspective, really I break it down to things that we've already been doing successfully on-premise, right? So private database cloud implies a practice of using controls at all levels of the information architecture, the defense in depth approach, really, right? The principle of least privileges limits access to the minimal level, right? And more importantly, applying authentication, authorization, and auditing at each layer of the stack, right? So we've been doing this, I hope, on-premise. The idea is to take that and extend that and ensure that those same technologies and same ideologies are implemented in the public cloud. So for private cloud, things we do from defense in depth is ensure physical access hardened, operating systems, hypervisors, virtual machines, storage, and applications are pretty much hardened. But from a public cloud perspective, really what's left to you as a consumer is ensuring that data at rest, data in transit, role-based access, and identity management are implemented, right? And most importantly, I think, is data evaluating application data distribution between private and public cloud. And I think no matter how well publicized public cloud is, we're never going to endorse throwing everything into the public cloud, right? So really the idea here is understand your data classification, what applications, what data sets can be kept in the public cloud versus on-premise, right? And a lot of this is going to be driven by regulatory and governance policies. And I think this is where PaaS plays is a sweet spot here. And I think where public cloud gets kind of a black eye is things like infrastructure as service, where again the onus and is completely on the consumer to go build out the hardening in the environment. So if you're doing this on its own, it's a little harder as opposed to if you ensuring that your public cloud provider is hardening the environment on its own. So this slide here I kind of stole from Oracle, but if my wish list, if I were to put anything into the public cloud or even on-premise, these are the things I would want to make sure that would be in place. Things like monitoring and blocking of any application, firewalls, right? Encrypting the database, encrypting backups, data masking, doing test and dev, multi-factor authentication, and most importantly, the 3 A's, auditing, authorization, and authentication. So when we as Viscosity started looking at these different cloud solutions, when we first started looking at Oracle Public Cloud, we started using this as our wish list. And interestingly enough, the Oracle Public Cloud with the high performance option actually includes all these right out of the box. So, so for some of our customers, we're doing things like whitelisting connectivity, or we're encrypting data at rest and encrypting data backups. And those things are done by default anyway. So are you sure your data is secure in the cloud? I just saw my presentation on the Weather Channel. So the point here is that no matter how much you harden, you really have to understand your data sets, understand where your data sets live, right? So that's where data classification becomes an important aspect of it. And I use these 4 buckets for describing how to classify data. Again, you can each customer will be different, each classification will be different, but identify what the different types of data sets that exist in your data center, and then map those data sets with the right approach and determine which data sets you're willing to put into a public cloud, on-premise, or managed services, right? So on this slide, we kind of map those classified data to security controls, right? I'm not going to go into too much detail on this, but essentially what you're trying to do is identify, classify, and map. So when we talk to customers about cloud, hybrid cloud, public cloud, whatever it is, one of the things that always comes up is, I think the cloud is going to take my job away. And interestingly enough, we're starting to see the emergence of new roles and to support the cloud. And in fact, a couple of customers we're working with have evolved and created separate roles and separate groups just to support this environment. And I'll kind of list out the 3 new roles that have kind of emerged. The first one is the cloud administrator. And this cloud administrator is essentially the gatekeeper for accessing cloud resources. Who can access what, when they can access it, the cloud shapes that are allowed to use. And a key aspect of this role is really resource monitoring and tenant lifecycle management. In a lot of cases, cloud environments will be built up, but they're never shut down or never decommissioned, right? So being able to manage that from a cloud administrator perspective is very important. And again, these roles may not be one person, it may be multiple. And in the case of one of our customers that we're working with, they have a specific admin for middleware as a service, database as a service, and even analytics. So a cloud broker is a very interesting new role. This cloud broker is really it varies with the different platforms. For example, you may have one that manages the AWS environment, Azure environment, or as well as Oracle. So this cloud broker essentially monitors, surveys data assets across cloud platforms, and defines data placement, like we talked about in the previous slides. So this is essentially like the old data steward role we had in the years before. This cloud broker also manages relationship with cloud vendors. Things like SLAs is a key aspect of this cloud broker. And finally, there is a business-to-cloud liaison. This is the product management role where the IT person kind of works with the business units to ensure that they get their SLAs met, right? And then finally, the cloud security admin. This is essentially the same role that that security team already has, but now you have to evolve that into a larger framework to support defense in depth in between private and public cloud deployments. So in summary, I'm going to give a little bit more time for Charles here, but the high priority concern for many enterprises has been priority concern for many enterprises has really been embarking on public enterprise cloud, really noisy neighbor containment. So the key here is that don't fear the cloud. In many cases, as we've seen, as we surveyed most of our customers, the public cloud actually has better controls, better hardening environment than your on-premise systems. So security is security. Really implement the appropriate level of security measure to meet compliancy, right? So thought process really doesn't change if you're implementing on-premise versus public cloud. Use the same methods, procedures, and ideology for both. And this is a little bit of a marketing slide, so I'll skip past the partner with Viscosity, and I'll turn that over to Charles.
All right, so thanks, Nitin. And I'm going to continue on the webinar and discuss, starting with what are some of the cloud service offerings that Oracle has, and go through some of the examples of things like how to create a database in the public cloud and how do you back up your current database from on-prem to the public cloud. And so, but before I begin, we do have quite a bit of a presence at Oracle OpenWorld. This is just my presentations and Nitin's presentations. And before we upload the final slide deck, we'll have all of the other Cloud SIG leaders' presentations incorporated to the slide deck. But we're starting on Sunday. We're doing a rapid provisioning of Oracle RAC and databases in the private cloud. And then on Thursday, after the customer appreciation party, we have the first presentation slot at 9:30, and we're going to be doing a database as a service. What is it and how do you use it? And it's going to be a Q&A forum with a lot of expert panelists, and I'll be one of the moderators. And on Monday at 10 a.m., we haven't finalized in the room yet, but we're going to do the Cloud Computing SIG meetup. And in our meetup, it's going to be really interesting. Our Cloud SIG over the past year has really taken off, and we've seen a lot more people wanting to join, a lot more maturity of adoption in the industry, and we're actually expecting quite a few folks this year. At IOUG, when we did our meetup, we had a lot of people join, and we're hoping we'll see a lot more at OpenWorld. And so I'm going to start by listing out the kind of service offerings or the service types that's available in the public cloud. If you look on the multi-tenant side, we have the traditional database schema, or what people used to call schema as a service, and we also have the pluggable database option, and we also have the Exadata offering that was mentioned a couple of months ago. And on the dedicated full instance side, right, we have the general purpose for Exadata as well, and the ability to do fully dedicated environments for customers. Oracle also offers right now 2 of the modes, virtual image, and this is where Oracle gives you a VM and gives you full access to the VM, has the software installed, and that's about it, available, and it's up to the customer to take care of the rest. And the automated section in the middle is where we're going to be spending a majority of our time. And this is where Oracle provides you the full orchestration, the ability to create databases, the ability to manage your databases, and also provides you full root access in the automated form as well. On the far right is the managed services, and Oracle does not have this ready yet, but it's where Oracle will basically provide you the DBA resources to maintain your databases. And so in the future, Oracle is saying that they will provide the managed services. And I provided this slide mainly to demonstrate that there is a full Exadata Engineer system available in the public cloud. You can get it as a quarter rack, half rack, or even a full rack. You can purchase fixed storage and up to 168 terabytes, whether it's mission critical or OLTP or DSS. And on the general purpose side, you can migrate your databases to the cloud. We're seeing, majority of our customers are taking their development and their test environments into the public cloud. And right now, this is where it's a little bit of mixed story that we're getting from Oracle and what's in the doc. The actual documentation says that you can take a database up to 10 terabytes in the cloud, whereas we're told by Oracle it's only 5 terabytes. And so this is, again, one of those areas that's going to evolve and change. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot more news about this at OpenWorld. And also, since we're mentioning this too, right, this is a part 1 of 2 series. We will have another webinar on November the 12th after OpenWorld, and it'll be basically to reveal all the new announcements and features that were mentioned at OpenWorld. From a database as a service perspective, you can license at the OCPU level. This is the Oracle Compute Unit, and this is where Oracle is promising that you'll get a equivalent of a 3 gigahertz 2012 Intel Xeon processor, a single core that's hyper-threaded. And so in your enterprise configuration, you'll see 1 OCPU with 7.5 gigs of memory, 2 OCPUs with 15 gigabytes, et cetera, up to 16 OCPU with 120 gigabytes of memory. Now what you'll see on the right side is the high memory availability. And so for each OCPU that's available, you can purchase double the memory that's available in your standard memory configuration. Okay. And as you see here, Oracle offers the standard edition, enterprise edition, high performance, and extreme performance. And so what we have seen is that standard edition was available. We're not seeing it today. So we're kind of curious to see where that's going to lead in the future. If you purchase the enterprise edition, you do get all the enterprise features. Plus, you also get transparent data encryption and advanced security option. If you purchase the high performance service, it also adds to the enterprise edition PDB, data guard, partitioning, advanced compression, RAT, etc. And if you purchase the extreme performance, you also get in-memory and active data guard. It does say that there's rack and rack 1 node available, but that's to come in the future. You can also purchase database as a service from Oracle in metered or unmetered mechanisms. And so if you purchase, for example, 3 months of meter services for database, what we've figured out is that if you're leveraging the meter services 7 by 24, it actually comes out to be 3 times the cost of a unmetered monthly subscription. And so these are the areas that you guys need to kind of do some calculations for best value. So that pretty much covers from the service offerings that Oracle has. Now let's look at how we would actually go and provision a database as a service. And so everything that we do in the Oracle world, public cloud, starts with cloud.oracle.com. And once we log in, we'll pick a service. In our case, our region is U.S. Commercial 2, and we'll log in to Oracle's public cloud. And I'm just doing this so that you'll get a high overview of what it looks like to provision a database as a service and what it looks like to actually log in from a portal perspective. So this is what you'll see in the initial login, right? And from the dashboard, I can pick the database cloud service. Okay, and so you'll see here that we have a database called 4, and that's where I'm going to pretty much work with in my entire demos. Okay, so going back to the PowerPoint slide, right? And so in here, we can click on the Create Service button, and that will be to go provision a new database. And so this is where we are, and I'm going to proceed with my presentation from here. Okay, so once I click on the Create Service button, I can create a database cloud service, which is the database service I've been talking about, or I can create a virtual image. We're going to focus on the database cloud service, and we're also going to pick, in our case, monthly. Okay, and right now the available release options are 11.204 and 12.102. And we'll pick 12.102 as we want to do a lot of the 12 new features. And we get to pick between Enterprise Edition, High Performance, and Extreme Performance. For now, we'll pick the Enterprise Edition. And this is where all the configuration for database as a service is at. And so I'm creating a database called 4, and it's mainly because I was watching that movie over the weekend. And in the shape here, right, if you click on the drop list, it will actually extrapolate to what you see here. And so as you can see, we have the O1 CPU, 7.5 gigs of memory, all the way up to 16 OCPUs and 120 gigabytes. And if you go with the additional memory option, right, you get 16 OCPU with 240 gigabytes of RAM. Okay, so that's one area that you have to select. Another area is the SSH public key. And so I wish I can do a show of hands of everybody, but this is where you would create you would actually generate the key for the private and public key. And you have multiple options. You can do it from any Linux server, do a keygen, SSH keygen that is, and I'll go through an example of that later on, or you can use PuTTY's key generator as well. So in this example, I've uploaded my public key that I used on my laptop. Okay, and what you also see is your backup destination here. On this backup destination, I have multiple choices. I can use local storage, which is what I picked for this database, or you can use cloud storage and local storage. And what cloud storage means is that leveraging Oracle's storage as a service and pre-creating your containers and then allocating that container to this database. And so we can have up to 5, and we'll just go with that, up to 5 1 terabyte containers for a database, even though the docs say you can have up to 10. And so, and then you have to create a password for your database. And this is where it gets a little kind of kludgy here, is that you must have 1 uppercase, 1 lowercase, 1 numeric, and 1 meta character. Except on the meta character, Oracle kind of limited to only certain meta characters. I try to use like exclamation point several times, and then finally read what the error message was and discovered that Oracle does not let you use the exclamation point, for example. And so once you fill out the details here, I'm also creating a PDB called dog. Okay. And now we're at the confirmation page. And so as you can see that I have a key called for.cloud.key, which is my public key, and I'm going to create this database on my local storage. And so once you click on the create button here, it takes about 30 to 45 minutes to create the database. Okay. And once you log in, once that database is created, when you go back to your central portal page, you'll be given an IP address for that database. Okay. And so now let's talk about, so we created this database, and so now let's talk about some of the security details. Okay. And so in general, everything in Oracle's public cloud is completely locked down. And so, for example, the listener, HTTP, Database Express, Database Console, right? All of that is completely locked down, and you have to manually go and unlock it. Okay, so this example here is the step-by-step of how to unlock the database listener. And so to unlock the database listener, I go to the Cloud Compute Service on the left, and then once I get on the landing page for that, I'll click on the Network tab, and from the Network tab, I will go scroll down to the database listener, and I will click on the Update button, the option, right? And once I do that, oops, sorry about that, it'll take me to the screen, and I'll take what's disabled and click on the Enabled button, right? And then I'll click on Update. And then after that, port 1521 will be available. Another option, some customers don't even want to do this. And so what they'll do is they will do a port forward. And so they'll set up the SSH configuration so that they can port forward between on-prem to Oracle's cloud. And they'll leverage port 22 to forward, let's say, port 1521. Then after that, they will access their databases. Okay. Like I mentioned earlier, you can use SSH Key Gen to generate both the public key and the private key. The public key in this case is the ID RSA.pub that it generates, which is right here, and the private key is ID RSA. And so you have to be very careful with your public and private keys, because once you lose them, you cannot log on to the database server. And so unlike traditional environments where you actually log in with a password, when you log into Oracle's public cloud servers, you log in with private keys. And so you must manage your private keys cautiously. And you have two options when you log in to the database server. You can log in as Oracle, or you can log in as OPC. And once you log into OPC, you can sudo to root. And that's how you get full root access. Okay, so here's an example where I'm SSHing to that particular IP address. I'm logging in as Oracle, and I'm providing my private key. And it prompts me, it does not prompt me for a password, and I'm in. I can do everything I want at that point. Shut down, start up, listener configuration, anything, right? And I can use SSH again, but this time use the OPC user account. And once I log into OPC, I can sudo, and I have full root access, as you see in the very bottom. So if you want to connect via SQL+, right, and especially in this case, I'm connecting to the PDB called dog that I created, right? And so the domain that you got to be conscious about is, in our case, Viscosity NA happens to be our domain, and Oracle Cloud.internal is the fully qualified domain that service name that's associated with this, right? And so I created a user called RODBA, and I connect with Easy Connect, right, to my IP address of my server on port 1521 with a service called DOG, which will take me to the PDB, right? But notice that I have to escape the double quote before and after at the end. Oops, oh gosh, sorry about that. Something just, right? And so, and you can see in the note that I have to double quote the host port in the PDB and put a backslash before the double quote. So that's showing you the output of listener status, right? In this example, you can see that the listener itself has a security wallet, and it is secure. It's using TCP/PS protocol. Okay, so we have end-to-end SSL connectivity between the client and our database on the web. Also, I can once I log in from SQL Plus, I can hit a view called $session_connect_info, and I see that my connection is encrypted, AES 256 encryption, and I have full encrypted connectivity, and I can also look at my encryption wallet as well. And this is just a little extra that I provided to demonstrate that the database on Oracle Public Cloud is fully patched. As you can see from the example, that the database is fully patched as of July 2015, which is the latest PSU, and it even has 5 additional one-off patches. Okay, and so now I'm showing another example of how you would actually do a TNS ping to the OPC database that we just created. Everything looks fine, except for you have to deal with the latency. Okay, and so when you create databases on Oracle Public Cloud, like we mentioned before, all advanced security options and things like transparent data encryption it comes bundled with the service. So in this example, I created 2 table spaces called encrypted data file and encrypted index, encrypted data and encrypted index. And I used AES 256 encryption. And once I created the table space, I queried DBA table spaces and looked at the column called encrypted. And as you can see, that the 2 table space that I created will be encrypted at rest, right? And so I demonstrated earlier that the listener and the client has full SSL encryption for data in transit, data that's moving between your on-premise to the cloud. And now I'm also showing that if you leverage the TDE and ASO, that all your table spaces, data at rest, is encrypted as well. Okay, and so you could also see from my SQLnet.aura, right, that I'm using SSL version 1.0, and then I have full cryptography and encryption enabled. Okay, and so now let's change our focus to backup. So what we want to talk about is backup to the cloud, right? So you have a database today on-prem, and if the database is not multi-terabytes or 500 terabytes, but if it's a pretty reasonable size, it could be 30, 40, 50 gigs, maybe even 100 gigs, right? You can actually back up your database to the cloud, and you can actually purchase backup as a service. And the cool thing about when you do backup to the cloud, you can leverage again the advanced security option for encrypted backups, and also for compression for free. And so, as you know, only the basic compression is free, but when you back up your database to the cloud, you can use low, medium, high, and you can use encryption for free as well. And the cool thing is that because you're also leveraging 12c, right, you can also do things like table recovery with RMAN from the cloud as well. Okay, and so I'm going to go through a step-by-step process of setting up the server on the on-premise server for backup and configuring RMAN and actually executing RMAN backup to the cloud, and from another data center I'm going to show how I actually am able to restore that database from the cloud. And so I'm going to actually switch over here to text editor. I'm sorry that instead of doing a full-blown demo, we've actually captured all the output, and now I'm going to actually show you the actual output. To perform backup as a service, leveraging Oracle Cloud, right? First thing you need to do is go to this website right here and download a file called opcinstall.zip. And once you unzip that, it will create a file called opcinstall.jar. And it will also have a README as well. If you want to know what all the command line options are, just type java-jar opc_install.jar, and you'll get all the available syntax, right? So in this case, what we're doing is we're actually installing the OPC libraries and also configuring the operating system to treat Oracle's public cloud backup service as a tape unit. So now, from a server perspective, I'm treating Oracle's cloud as a virtual tape. Okay, and so when we install the OPC, the jar, right, you have to give it a service name, and this must be storage, and it is case sensitive, and so you must spell it with a capital S. This is the identity domain that we used, and this is our Oracle Public Cloud ID and password. And the password does require you to have a meta character. So in our example, we must single quote the actual password, right? And also you have to provide it the wallet directory and the library directory, and the live platform of Linux 64 is optional, but we do it anyway. And you can actually go install the wallet shared object and the library shared object anywhere, but we are strongly recommended that you're putting it into Oracle Home DBaaS and Oracle Home Live. And the reason being is that when you start leveraging the full capabilities of OEM, OEM expects those files to be there. And also you don't have to set up the environment variables within RMAN as well. So executing this command, you see the output here. And so the output that you see here is what we set up when we're doing our technology day. And the output that you see here is what we set up in our Viscosity internal lab. Okay, and so I'm doing a cat on the OPC orcl.ora file that I created, and you can see that it's got the host information of where our cloud storage is going to be, and it also has the location of our wallet as well. Okay, and if I just do an ls-l on Oracle Home OPC wallet and Oracle Home Live opc.so, here are the files. Okay, so far right now I've installed the jar file, and I've verified that my shared objects and my configuration is correct from an operating system perspective, right? Next step is I'm going to actually configure RMAN. Okay, and so in this example, I have a before image of my RMAN configuration, and this is the default. Okay, and I'm going to actually configure RMAN. So we've written a little script to configure the retention policy, the device type, and you can see here the SBT live and a location of the OPC file, right? And we've set SB tape to be parallelism of 3, and we haven't changed the basic compression yet, right? And executing generates this configuration, and here's what the configuration looks like after we configure RMAN, right? So far we've configured the operating system and we've configured RMAN, right? So let's take a backup, okay? So from RMAN on-prem, right, I'm going to do a compressed backup, level 0, and I'm going to back up the database. I'm going to do a compressed backup again. I'm going to back up the archive logs that have not been backed up twice. And this is our generic standard that we use within Viscosity. And then I'm going to back up the control file, right? And I'm going to run it as a self-contained shell script. And I'm running the shell script right here, right? So as you can see here, right, this is the output. and it performs a full level 0 backup of a database to the cloud. Okay, so here I've backed up the control file, an SP file, and backed up the control file, and I backed up the archive logs, and over here I backed up all the databases. Okay, and just to demonstrate how secure Oracle is, everything that goes to Oracle Cloud must be encrypted, and everything that comes out must be encrypted, right? And so in this example, I'm trying to do a backup. Over here, notice that I have not set up my encryption, right? As a result of it, I get an error message saying unable to encrypt backup. So Oracle will not allow you to back up a database that is not in encrypted mode. Okay. In this recovery, I did not. In this example, I did not I did not decrypt the backup before I try to restore, and as a result, it says unable to decrypt backup. Okay. So let's look at this last example. This is a step-by-step that we're going through. I'm first going through and allocating a channel, and as you can see, it's SVT library and setting up my OPC file, right? And the reason why I have to do that is because I can't change the configuration of RMAN until after I mount the control file, okay? And also, I have to set the DB ID, and then once I do that, I can restore the control file from out of backup. And as you can see here, it's allocates the channel, and it's restored my control file. Okay. Now I'm going to go through restoring the database. As you can see here, I'm allocating a channel of SPT tape, and I'm creating 3 channels, and I'm restoring the database and recovering the database. And I'm intentionally not opening the database for reset log, and I'll do that manually at the end. So as you can see, it allocates 3 channels of SPT tape, and it goes through and does the actual restore, right? And as part of the same script, it's doing a recovery as well. So recovered sequence number 27 and sequence number 28, right? And it stops because it can't find anymore. And I am opening the database reset logs, and I'll check $recover file to make sure that I don't have any more files that need to be recovered. And I check the DBA data files, right? And I see all my database files, right? And the cool thing is that I'm doing this all through RMAN now, right? I can execute SQL within RMAN, which is a new 12c feature. Okay, so I've gone through in my example a step-by-step process of, downloading the backup modules, installing it, and configuring RMAN. Okay, and this is a high-level slide of what I did basically. Okay, and I've gone through the backup and recovery, and for sake of time, we knew that we were not going to go through the pricing, but at this point, we'd like to open up the audience for questions.
It doesn't look like we have any questions at this point, but please do feel free to submit those questions in the question chat box. Any closing remarks from you guys, Charles and Nitin?
Thank you for joining our webinar, and look forward to the part 2 of the series early November, and also look for the Cloud Computing SIG in Facebook and Twitter. And thanks everybody for joining.
It looks like we do have a few questions. What is the encryption type from RMAN?
So from an RMAN perspective, right? If you buy, so in your enterprise today, unless you buy the advanced security option, you can do the basic encryption for free. But whenever you do anything beyond basic, for example, say low, medium, or high, you have to pay for advanced security option. And so if you buy backup as a service from Oracle Public Cloud, you're able to leverage beyond just basic. And so, for example, I don't recall the exact details. So the compression between, let's say, low will generate more compression than the basic, but with less CPU utilization, right? Things like that.
Great, thank you. And a few of our other questions are when the recording link will be available, and that will be available by the end of the day today. And then for follow-up questions, please feel free to direct those to the speakers at IOUG.org inbox if they were not answered today. And we'd like to give a big thank you to our speakers, Charles and Nitin. Thank you for joining us today. Before we conclude, please make note of our upcoming webinars and past webinars by visiting www.ioug.org. A recording from today's webinar will soon be available on the IOUG website in our Resource Center. We'd like to thank our speakers and everyone online for attending the event today. There is a survey after this webinar for you to complete. We thank you in advance for your feedback. Thanks again for joining us and have a great day.